Thank you everyone for joining us today for the FOODITY open call webinar. This is the second webinar that we're running. We are going to be talking about the FOODITY project as well as the open call in more detail. There will be a separate presentation on the data in architecture that has been developed for this project by our partner JIBE. And we will also have an introduction to the open call that's being run by our sister project, DRG for Food. So let's get started. Hi again, I'm Nika Levikov. I am the open call manager with F6S. Unfortunately, the coordinator of this project, Samuel Almeida, also with F6S, could not join us today, but we do have speaking as well Hans Hoff from JIBE Company, responsible for the data architecture. So some details about the project. I want you all to start by thinking about your food, your nutrition, and your health habits. Think about the different apps and services that you use on a regular basis and the data that are being generated when you use these things. So first of all, what data are you generating when you're interacting with an app? What data are being collected when you're doing exercise? For example, maybe you're wearing a smartwatch. Who has access to those data? Can those data be used freely? Are there limitations? Can you easily get access to your own data and delete these data if you want to? So these are the questions that are driving the FOODITY project. And what we want to see, especially in our open call, is a connection between empowering citizens and having them gain awareness around their data, how it is used, and managing that data. And then on the other side, looking at the macro scale to food systems. How can the data that are generated by individual users contribute towards more sustainable food systems? So we really want to tackle both ends of the spectrum. So on the one hand, we want to put control of people's food and nutrition data back into their hands, and through that data, contribute to the development of more sustainable food and nutrition systems. We want to empower people to take control over how their data are utilized, with the understanding and belief that in doing so, people will begin to make healthier and more environmentally conscious food choices. And ultimately, we want to overcome the existing limitations that we're seeing in our food systems when much of our data is interacting inside of closed systems, which means that other companies and organizations do not have access to these data to help design even better solutions to enable and foster the development of more sustainable systems. So essentially, what we believe in FOODITY is that empowered citizens taking control of their data is a necessary part inside of an open system to enable the transition to more sustainable food and nutrition systems. Our mission: create a dynamic ecosystem of digital solutions for food and nutrition that respects citizens' right to personal data sovereignty in Europe. How are we doing this? We are running a €2 million pilot development program and funding 12 solutions that demonstrate the potential of data-driven innovation in food and nutrition whilst ensuring complete user control over their personal data. Who are we? We are a multidisciplinary team of 7 different entities based in Europe with expertise in technology, data, citizen engagement, and social innovation. And now let's dig into the open call. The open call has a 2-funnel stage approach. We have phase 1, which is focused on project implementation. It is the longest phase, lasting 9 months, and selected pilots have up to 150K in this phase. This is the start of advancing your data-driven and innovative solution. The phase is broken up into 3 phases: specification, design, implementation, and validation. It is important to note that in the start of this pilot program, you will be working with our experts to refine and develop in more detail your work plan, your key performance indicators or KPIs, but also we're expecting you to start with citizen engagement. So interacting with your target groups or your end users, we want to see that from start to finish. Then we have phase 2. This is impact maximization. And this will be lasting for 3 months with up to 30K in funding. It is important to note that only 3 of the selected 6 pilots will move on to the second phase. And this is really where we're focusing on getting your product to market. So doing pilot and product testing, as well as working on business sustainability. Then those 3 pilots will move on to our final event, the FOODITY Star Award, where there will be a chance to pitch in front of a live jury. The winning team will receive an additional 7.5K. Who are we looking for? We are after a diverse team. So as you can see, we're looking at 4 different key groups. The first are startups and small to medium-sized enterprises, or SMEs. Please note that SMEs that we're looking for are according to the European Commission definition of SMEs, and this will be the technical arm of your team. We are also interested in research and technology organizations and universities that are doing research around solving challenges that we're finding in the food and nutrition sectors. We are additionally interested in targeting social innovation actors. This can take the shape of an NGO, of a citizen or civil society organization that are working on raising awareness, especially when it comes to data sovereignty. But we are aware that social innovation actors can also be private entities. And lastly, we're looking at training organizations that are providing professional training for careers in the food industry. So apart from having different experts, what we want to see in your teams are not just the technical capacity, for example, to design a fun, cool app, but the expertise and the knowledge and the skill set to bring in that social innovation and citizen engagement aspect. The consortia must be made up of 2 to 3 entities. In the case of 2 entities, that can be 2 SMEs. However, if you are building a consortium of 3 entities, then the third partner must be a nonprofit. So that means it could be a nonprofit training organization, an NGO, or a public research institution. The scope of the call. So what are we funding? As you can see here, we are intentionally broad because at the end of the day, we want to see sustainable food systems. We're looking at 3 main areas: food and nutrition personalization, food sustainability, and shopping experiences. But we also have an open challenge. So what we mean by this is perhaps you have an idea that engages citizens around personal data sovereignty and is addressing some part of the food system, but it doesn't fit into one of these 3 categories that you see here. We are ready to accept your proposals, and we're eager to see what innovative idea you have come up with. But take note that at least 1 project per main area will be funded. And also a minimum of 3 projects will be funded that are incorporating FOODITY components. There are 5 components, and I will talk about those more in a later slide. Now, all of the projects that will be onboarded into the pilot program must be using our data architecture. So we have the data U and the data lake that are composing this data architecture that has been built by FOODITY. This ensures that data is ethically managed and stored, and proper consent has been obtained for any individual users from whom you are collecting that data. So Hans from JIBE will be speaking in more detail about this later on, so I will not go into that right now. And let's talk about how your proposal is going to be evaluated. So as you can see here, we have 4 main criteria. There's the concept and challenge. We want to see how your proposed solution is aligned with the FOODITY vision, and of course, it needs to be. We want to see what challenge you are addressing, so be clear on that challenge and be clear and concise on your solution to that challenge, and make sure that it is state-of-the-art. Impact and innovation. It is essential that your solution has real impact, but what does that look like? We want to see both short-term and long-term impact projections, both in the form of quantitative estimated impact and qualitative. We understand that some of these impacts might be more refined or might even be subject to change as your solution advances within the pilot program, and that is fine. But it's important to know that you've been thinking about this from the beginning. And of course, we want to understand how you're contributing not just to empowering citizens, but to sustainable food systems. So please do outline your projected impacts in both of those ways. Data rights and citizen engagement. How are you going to guarantee citizens' data rights? If you are collecting personal data in which individuals can be identified, we need to know that you have some kind of data management plan for this. It's also important to note that any data collected in which individual persons are identifiable, these are not data which we can store in the data lake. So again, it is very important that you are able to explain how you will manage that data on your own. We want to know how you're going to be engaging citizens, both in phases 1 and 2. We don't need a finalized, concrete, detailed engagement plan in your proposal, but we would like to see the mention of a minimum of 1 citizen engagement activity. Team and implementation. Of course, you need to describe your work plan in detail, but also what are your proposed outcomes as well as your proposed KPIs. We will, again, be working with you at the start of the pilot program to really detail your KPIs and make sure that your plan is realistic and achievable. We will support you in achieving those KPIs throughout the program, but it is essential that we understand what it is that you plan to do, to know that you also have an understanding of what's expected from you in this pilot program. And perhaps it goes without saying, but we need to understand what kind of team you have, the capacity of your team to achieve your projected work plan and to achieve those results, and ensure that you are going to be engaging citizens and properly incorporating the social innovation aspect into your solution. Each proposal will be evaluated by 2 external evaluators, and the criteria will be ranked from 1 to 5, and the minimum threshold is 3. This is a brief look at what the proposal looks like on the F6S platform. You will be applying through this platform. If you don't already have a profile on F6S, please do create an account with us. It's relatively straightforward, as you can see here, but there is a support team ready to help if you have any questions or concerns. Here's what the technical proposal looks like. All of our associated open call documents are available on the FOODITY project website. This proposal is downloadable as a Word document. As you can see, we have broken up the application into the separate criteria. And our timeline. Our open call is open now. It closes on the 8th of November promptly at 5 p.m. CET. This is a strict deadline, so be aware that we are not accepting any late applications. So please do start now if you haven't already started them. We will be evaluating, selecting, and contracting from November till the end of December. All people who have, or all consortia that apply to this open call, will receive an evaluation summary report. So you will be getting feedback from us. Those that are selected will be signing a contract after going through an administrative check at the end of December. And then the acceleration pilot program will begin in early January and go for 1 year. What are we providing in the FOODITY pilot program? Apart from money, which I know everyone is excited about, so up to 187.5K, but money is not the key to success. There are many other aspects that are required for you and your solution to really take off and scale. We will be providing you with access to technologies to support and develop your solutions further, as well as expert mentoring, group coaching, and tailored technical training. The training and mentoring will cover various aspects, not just from the technical side, but also from the business side of things. And the FOODITY components. As I mentioned earlier, there are 5 different components which you may or may not select to work with. The first is food recognition from photos. Then we have food production identification from photos, personalized nutrition plan, personalized support for nutrition and physical activity, and nutrition and activity ontology. Now, all of these components are going to work in different ways. For example, the first component uses a Python script. Some of the other components use AI and SaaS software. So please do take a look at our technical annex 1.1. You will find not only details on these components, but also the licensing agreements. Our mentoring. As I mentioned earlier, we do provide mentoring service throughout the pilot program. Our mentors have not been selected yet. We will be running an expression of interest for this, but they will provide support and guidance to achieve your KPIs throughout the program. This is from both a technical and business point of view. As you can see, there are a number of different training topics that we are considering to cover. These are not set in stone. Because the training is tailored, we will, of course, identify your specific needs and make sure that we are providing the training that is requested. But we are looking at things from business strategy to business modeling, personal data sovereignty, data ethics, legal training on EU citizen data rights, financing. So we are trying to cover all the bases, essentially. And what are some key points to remember? So as I mentioned earlier, our open call is open now. Start your application. It closes on the 8th of November at 5 p.m. We are looking at consortia of 2 to 3 entities, which are led by an SME. In the case of a 3-partner consortium, it must be a social innovation actor in the form of a nonprofit, an NGO, or you can have a research institution that is a public body. The scope, we are looking at data-driven solutions in the food and nutrition domains that are respectful of personal data sovereignty. And finally, TRL, which is something I have not mentioned yet. This is another strict point because we are only accepting applications that are at TRL 4 to 6. We will not accept any applications that are below TRL 4 or above TRL 6. What we would like to see in the pilot program is solutions that advance to TRL 7. We understand that for some pilots, this might not be possible and you need more time, that is fine. But we would really like to see in the program a preparation of getting your product to market. There might be some projects in which you advance to TRL 8 or above, and that's great. But again, it's not a requirement that you hit the level 7 at the end. We also have our social media tags here, so if you're not already following us on LinkedIn and X, please do so. I would also like to talk briefly about our matchmaking service. This is something new that we're trying. We understand that many of you coming from the technical side of things may not know social innovation actors. In this case, please fill out this application. It's very brief. And what we do is we look at your application, we evaluate your idea, your expertise, and look at what kind of expertise you're asking for and see if there's another entity that is able to match with you. We cannot guarantee any matches, and we cannot guarantee that anyone we put you in contact with will result in a successful application, but hopefully any connections made will lead to a fruitful collaboration. So some final considerations and tips. It is very important to read the guidelines carefully. The guidelines are a detailed document that provides you with everything that you need to know about what we're expecting and how to apply for the open call. Double check that there is no conflict of interest. Any entity may only participate in a maximum of one proposal, okay? And be clear and specific. Bear in mind that external evaluators do not know you and they do not know your idea or solution. So try to explain things in a way that would be understandable for someone who is not an expert in your area. All proposals must be submitted exclusively via the F6S platform and in English. We will not be accepting proposals in any other way, and try your best to submit ahead of the deadline. And I'm putting some links here again for you. We have our project website and a dedicated page about the open call. Apply via F6S. We have a discussion forum on the F6S platform, so feel free to start a dialogue there. Our support team is available if you have any issues with the platform. And if you have additional questions about the open calls, you can send us an email at opencalls@foodity.eu. And I'm showing the link again for our matchmaking application. So that's it. I want to thank you so much for your time. And now I'm going to pass it over to Hans to speak about the data lake and the data U.
So the blue lines represent somehow, I would call it sensitive data, which is shared between organizations. When we also share data from citizens, it becomes GDPR, let's say GDPR sensitive data, and you need explicit consent from the data owner, the citizen, to share that data, to use that data in your organization, in your own data processor. And that's, so you see that data is flowing from the data owner, the citizen, back into a data processor. In a data processor, they create that and give feedback again, to personalized feedback to the data owner. So it is a nested way of looking at all actors in this value chain, and let's say and that is something we have to organize in our projects, in the projects you are preparing. So how does that work in reality? And I try to do that on screens. So suppose the data processor, a third party has a service provider, and they ask, let's say, from a citizen, they ask the date of birth, the weight, and the height, and they ask, please give me explicit consent. When this citizen is already registered in the FOODITY Data U platform, then we jump directly to the consent screen, and that means that here you say date of birth, weight, height. You give explicit consent. Yes, I give it, and you can give it in a few ways. You can give it that you say I type my birth and date of birth. I type my weight, but you could also let's say connect it to another data processor which stores this data for you and allow the original, let's say, provider to collect the data from that data processor. So that is a bit the idea. If you are, let's say, if the citizen was not registered as a user of the FOODITY DataU service, then you first have to register as a person. And once you're registered, you come to this consent screen. In the same way, it works for companies and company sharing data between each other. And I will not go into the details because I think that is logic. Then I hand over to my colleague Cosmin, who will tell you a little bit about the architecture of the FOODITY DataU, let's say, platform. And I think he will also tell how you can, let's say, what kind of software of APIs are developed, how you can connect to this architecture. Please, Cosmin.
Hello everyone, I'm Cosmin. I'm part of the JIBE team, and I'll present you the architecture of the DataU platform. So the DataU platform stands behind the FOODITY platform, and it's comprised of many components. One of them is a dashboard we see in the left, where the data subject can grant or revoke the permission for a data processor. Then we have the identity provider that provides a secure way to identify each entity in this platform. And this is the data processors and the data subject. And then we have the data processors themselves, and they must run their own proxy instance, but we can also run them and in the first phase we can run these instances for them. These proxy instances will communicate with the DataU nodes, which we see on the bottom, and the nodes of the platform are basically blockchain nodes and are divided into two categories: the main nodes and the topping nodes. And these topping nodes are made for scaling better the platform and also for categorizing the data in different sectors, different fields. I forgot to mention that the identity provider has certificate authority behind it, and that's the main authority, which is managed in the DataU. And yeah, I think this is it.
Yeah, maybe one addition. You will become with your application a data processor, and we supply, let's say, you code which you can implement in your code, so you can connect and talk with the proxy service, and as such you can ensure that all the data you request from other people or other organizations are going through this system.
Yeah, basically your backend application will integrate with the proxy instance, and from there the proxy instance will know to communicate with the whole platform. Okay, here we have some examples of what the SDK of the proxy instance is capable of. So we have capabilities of retrieving data for different subjects. We have the capability to register some documents, and these documents to be referenced in the future as terms and conditions. And also the first thing that data processor need to do is to correlate with the data subject in order to get the identifier of the data subject, and after that to be able to make a permission request for that data subject. Also, this SDK is capable of handling incoming events for updating the data subject on the data processor systems. and also to remove the data once the data subject opt this way to revoke the permission for data processor.
This in fact, just to give it a, or let's say a more helicopter view, this allows you when you give access to your let's say data file, personal data file with your weight and how the weight develops over the last months. Every update of that data, you can get an incoming event. Hey, this document is updated. Please collect the next the next version, so that you know that the new scale, the new weight information can be processed in your application.
Yeah.
Okay.
And here we have a diagram of the proxy integration with the SDK. So the important thing is that the SDK provides some library, some code that connects to the proxy server, the proxy instance, which knows to communicate with the whole platform, the blockchain nodes and all that. And basically, all you need to do is to integrate that SDK in your backend system, in your if you're a data processor, and from there you can handle your front-end requests as usual. And also, before that, you need to be identified by the IDU, the identity provider, as a legitimate data processor to be able to use the SDK.
Mm-hmm. This architecture allows that when you are having an application and you want information from a citizen, this data sharing between the citizen and your application is only visible and can only be seen and only can be traced by you and the citizen and nobody else. And that's how this is organized. So it means that all communication between your application and the citizen, but is let's say secured to be only visible and accessible via the two parties, you and the citizen, or you as a company and another company. Depends how you organize it. Okay, thank you very much, Cosmin. Let me go to the data lake. Yeah, the data lake is we expect that the several pilots which we or the projects we expect that they will share deep personalized data or food related data with us as a project with FOODITY. We do not expect any personalized data, so any data which is not anonymized cannot be stored in this data lake. I think that's a very important part. For that, we will register each organization, and we ask for a contact person of each organization who will supply data to the data lake. We verify and approve this organization and the person that they can send data to the data lake. And when you really upload data, it will be also done via a data use consent, so that we again, let's say please, this data is uploaded. It is absolutely depersonalized and anonymized, so that no link can be made between the data and individual persons who supplied the data. Then ultimately this will result in a website for researchers and citizens who can access this data and while respecting in fact everything which we call the GDPR compliancy. A few use cases, what we imagine that if you want to eat healthy, individuals can use the data lake to search for information about more, let's say, nutritional content of specific food, or find alternative options. We also like that the data lake could support us in making better choices when we want to, let's say, make more sustainable, let's say, food choices. So be sure that there is, let's say, that it is produced in a most sustainable way. And finally, we also want for researchers to access this data for, let's say, analyzing, let's say, all kind of impacts and results for, or let's say, as impact on the public health or impact on, let's say, the environment as a whole. How will this be organized? We have on one side the 12, let's say, projects, and maybe there will be more. We hope that also towards the future. The data goes from the data providers to the project into the data lake, and then can be analyzed via Kibana, Elasticsearch, or Logstash, and other people can have, let's say, access via these systems to the data lake. And what we said is the sharing is done directly between you and the data lake, but it can only be done after consent is given via the data you, as I explained before. Of course, there is a whole logistic steps when you want to provide, and according to this scheme, let's say, you make choices, and that's how we decide which route to take and how to organize that. So that was it from my perspective, and I'll give the floor back to Nika.
Thank you so much, Houf and Cosmin. I'd like to reiterate that we have the Q&A open, so as the questions come, please put them into the Q&A chat, and we will address them all after the presentations have concluded. So I'm going to pass it on to our colleague Maja from our sister project DRG for Food to talk about their open call. So please, Maja.
Thank you, Nika. My name is Maja. I'm coming from the sister project to DRG for Food, to FOODITY. The project is called, sorry, I have a small issue. Okay, I hope you can see my screen. Please confirm if you can see my screen. Yes, no?
Black right now?
Should be now. Is it there yet?
Not yet. Do you want to maybe stop and try sharing again?
Yes, sorry for this. Okay, should be fine now, right?
Yes, but you're not in presentation mode.
I will be. So DRG for Food is the sister project to FOODITY. We are having our first open call right now. The call is open until December 11, and we are looking to support pilots in the domain of food tracking, targeted nutrition, and consumers' food choices. So again, food tracking, targeted nutrition, and consumers' food choices. What is unique in our approach is the concept of digital responsibility and digital responsibility goals. In other words, the pilots that we are going to support need to be data-driven and need to comply with the minimum basic requirements that we will, of course, along the way provide you so that you can embed the principles of digital responsibility in your solutions. The total budget for our first open call is 950,000 euros, and the maximum amount that you can ask for is 300,000 euros. We are looking for pilot projects being developed. Yes.
Right. Just to let you know, your slides are not changing.
Okay, I have an issue then. Sorry. I will have to reshare again. In the meantime, I will continue talking, not to lose your time. Who are we looking for? We are looking for pilot projects developed by a small consortium consisting of 2 to 3 partners. Partners can be startups and SMEs, research organizations, and also technology adopters or users in the food sector. There are no restrictions in terms of whom can lead the consortium. It can be either the SME partner or the research partner. And there are no restrictions in terms of number of countries, so all partners can be from the same country, as long as you demonstrate in your applications that you can achieve a wider impact and you can prove that you can quickly scale up to other European markets. Only one proposal per applicant is allowed, and of course, please keep in mind the budget for your applications that needs to be in range of 150,000 until 300,000 euros. Next slide. As I said, our solutions that we will going to support need to be driven by digital responsibility goals and principles. Of course, once the project starts, we will give you an in-depth guidance on the concept of digital responsibility and how you need to how you should embed these concepts in your solutions. However, at the application stage, you need to double check some questions in our application form related to some mandatory digital responsibility requirements. For example, your team's expertise in software design and cybersecurity, then the clarity and explainability of your output, then data set integrity, and similar. So these are really the minimum criteria that we will be double checking in your application forms. So make sure to pay attention to this particular aspect and this set of questions. Other than the DRGs, we will also be looking at the overall technological concept and the level of innovation. We will going to look into your overall business planning and the value model that you're trying to achieve, and as well as the overall impact that you will demonstrate once the project start and of course throughout the project and beyond. And last but not the least, we will also be looking into how your consortium is constructed, whether you're complementary, and how you have allocated your resources in terms of time, people, and of course financial resources. When it comes to technologies that we are looking for, of course, the detailed information can be found in our guidelines for applicants. But just to illustrate, we are looking into decentralized identities, DLT and blockchain technologies, responsible AI, and similar. But please take a look into our documentation to get a more in-depth look into the digital responsibility goals and into the technologies that we would like to see in this call. The process is already ongoing. You can already apply via F6S for our first open call. Don't miss the deadline. The deadline is 11th of December, 5 p.m. Central European time. We expect the projects will start in March, and they will be divided into 3 phases, each of which has its own set of activities, and based on these activities and the KPIs that you achieve, you will receive parts of your total budget. What do we offer in the to you in the scope of this pilot project. Apart from the funding, we also offer materials, guidance, and tools to help you align with digital responsibility goals and requirements. We offer you access to our toolbox, which is about to be launched in a couple of weeks, where you will be able to access a set of enablers and tools, and you will also be able to also contribute to the toolbox. So it's a two-way street. Of course, along the way, we will offer you business guidance and investor readiness trainings, and also help you in further communicating about your solutions to the wider ecosystem of stakeholders, whether they are from public or private sector, investors, and similar. So whatever, the program is fully tailored to your individual needs. Just to summarize the main notes, don't miss the deadline, 11th of December. We are looking for small consortia consisting of 2 or 3 partners from EU or Horizon Europe associated countries. We are looking for data-driven solutions in food tracking, nutrition, and consumer food choices, and what I haven't mentioned is the technology readiness level should be at least 4 or 5, and we will expect that you will be able to reach until the end of your project to technology readiness level of 7. Some quick links are here. I will also post them in the chat. We have an upcoming webinar on November 21st. So feel free to register, and we will dive deeper into all the important things that I mentioned today. The application process, we can start it at F6S. We also offer matchmaking service to our applicants in case you need help identifying potential partners. And of course, all the documentation and the guidelines can be found on our website, drg4food.eu/open calls. My name is Maja, and feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn in case you have any further questions. There is also an email available, opencalls@drg4food.eu. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Maja, for that presentation. And I want to thank my colleagues again, Hans and Cosmin, as well for their presentation. And I cannot believe we're actually ahead of time. These things usually never go this way, but we have a ton of great questions. So let's go ahead and just start digging into the questions. The first one is specifically about our components. So regarding image recognition, I believe my colleague Lazarus from CERT, who's responsible for the components, is here. So I would like to direct this question to you. How does the image recognition component work? Does it only detect cooked food in dishes or also raw food products in supermarket shelves/cages?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Can you please repeat the question because I didn't hear it very well?
Yes, and I'm going to paste it into the chat again. So regarding the image recognition component, how does it work? Does it only detect cooked food in dishes or also raw products?
No, it only detects cooked food in dishes. But there is also another component that can detect barcodes of products, but not the picture of the product, for example, the barcode only.
Okay, thank you. The next question, is there a country eligibility criterion? This is a very good question. Of course, FOODITY, being an EU-funded project, is focused on Europe, but we are accepting consortia that are made up of Horizon Europe associated countries. So there is a specific document by the EU that outlines which countries are eligible. Perhaps my colleague Andrea can put a link in the chat. So it's also allowed for all the consortia to be from one country. However, in that case, it needs to be an EU country. But you can, for example, have a consortium where you have someone from, a partner from, I believe Algeria is one of the eligible countries that has partnered with an entity from Spain. Okay. Now, there's another question here. There's specifically define the maximum. Okay, this is from somebody anonymous. I don't understand this question, but I will respond to you in the chat, and maybe we can also continue via email. So what rights will you retain over the data, and will you be conducting any further processing? I'm going to hand this over to Hans.
Yeah, in principle, we don't hold the rights over this data. The only thing, so we expect that the rights will stay with the projects and the data owners. So I think that is the best answer I can give.
Thank you. For phase 1, can we provide a minimum level of evidence to show potential path towards phase 2? Honestly, Adriana, I'm not quite clear on the question. Small sample, anonymized data sets from users measured improvements in their health. I'm not sure if Hans, you can help answer this one.
You have to repeat it for me because I was answering
Yes.
another question.
So an example of providing minimum level of evidence to show potential path towards phase 2. The example being a small sample and / anonymized data sets from users with measured improvements in their health.
Yeah, well, when the data is when we can see personal data, then we cannot use this data for the data lake. I think that is what maybe they try to say. If it is personalized data which you process in your application and then give feedback to the user on this personal data combined with other services you have, yeah, that is all. Let's say that data sharing has to be managed via DataU, so that we are ensure that the citizen or the person gives explicit consent to share that data. If a person says this is anonymized data, or an organization, that is in itself not enough. You really need to give explicit consent that this data, that you agree to anonymize this data, and after that, when it is explicitly given as consent, then the data is let's say anonymized and can be used in the data lake and is accessible freely for other people. I hope that gives a bit of an answer.
Thank you. I apologize. I think I mispronounced your name, Aradna. But in any case, please let me know in the chat if that's answered your question. We have from Martin, can you apply for both Sodakin and FOODITY? So Sodakin is another EU-funded project. Also F6S is a part of that one. The answer is technically yes, they are separate projects, but as with any EU-funded project, there cannot be any case of double funding, meaning you cannot receive funding for the same thing twice. So as long as you're receiving funds for different projects, that's fine. Can you have a consortium of 3 partners that's an SME, a university, and a nonprofit? Yes, that is acceptable. 4 partners, no, because we are only allowing consortia mix of 2 to 3. Is there a channel to ask clarifications regarding the components? So if you have more specific questions about components, please do reach out to us, open calls at foodity.eu. But before doing so, make sure you've read through the technical annex 1.1. And the licensing agreements are accessible as well. There's links to everything. So have a look at those. And again, then if you have questions after that, please reach out. In the case of 3 partners, so I believe I've now answered that. So this composition is acceptable. A reminder that when it comes to social innovation, we don't consider social innovation according to the type of entity that you are. We're looking at social innovation in terms of the capacity to do it and the fact that you already have the experience, the knowledge, and the skills to implement social innovation practices. In our guidelines, we have provided a concrete definition of what we mean by social innovation, so please take a look at that as well. Has the data lake become available at this point? Can you access it? Back to Hans.
Not yet. So, sorry, but we expect that it is available in January. So when the let's say the projects will start, we are sure that it will be available.
Thank you. All of the partners from Turkey, is this suitable? So this is a tricky question. Turkey is a Horizon Europe associated country in between Europe and Asia, but because this is EU funds, I encourage you to think about having an EU partner. It's quite important that there's a partner that is from an EU country to make up your consortium. Can you add an NGO as a partner? Of course. Does the SME have to be established recently, or can it be established in 2016? So in terms of SMEs, we are adopting the EU definition of an SME. I will ask my colleague Andrea to put a link in the chat of what that EU definition is. And this means that we're not going to ask for any verification documents at the application stage. But should you be selected, we will do a check to verify that you are a properly registered company. So if you have a VAT and you've been a registered entity since 2016, that's more than fine. Are all the data in the data lake stored in a blockchain? Who has access rights to the data in the data lake? What is the exploitation model in using the data lake when further exploiting the developed solution? Are you taking equity? Does the usage of the data lake ask for access fees? Hans, several questions for you.
Yeah, well, in principle, the data lake is based on, let's say, open science, and it means that the data should be available for every researcher, for every citizen, for every person. We have, let's say, a plan within the project of FOODITY to think about a business model, how we can, let's say, recover the cost of managing such a data lake, but we don't have that in place yet. So I cannot tell how that goes in the future at this stage.
Okay.
I think that answers most of the questions.
Yes, Harold, please let us know if that's sufficient, and if not, put in the Q&A specifically what further you need answers to. Okay, what timing of funding is expected for the chosen projects? So you will get the way the funding is distributed is detailed in the guidelines. You will get the first batch of funding at the start. I cannot remember off the top of my head what percentage it is. and you will receive the last amount of funding at the end of the project, provided that you have achieved your KPIs fully. Okay, this is a great question about citizen engagement. Thank you, Mark. What does that look like? So essentially, we are expecting that you have in your team the capacity to do this, meaning there is someone or an entity in your team that has that expertise. But essentially, when we're thinking about engagement, this goes beyond communication. So communication is a one way I am imparting knowledge or information or results onto you. With engagement, we're looking at an exchange. So two parties are exchanging information, having a dialogue. And the idea is that by bringing in your users to the start, by bringing in citizens at the beginning, getting an understanding of what do they know about how their data are generated? What do they know about how their data are managed? Could this inform the way that you are then managing the data that they are giving, for example, through an application that you've created? It also entails understanding their needs and how you need to perhaps, I'm going to use an app again as an example because it's the easiest. So with your app, is it user friendly? Does the design make sense? Does the app have the features that your users want? Or maybe there's something missing and you might engage them through something like a focus group. Maybe you will have a workshop. There are many different ways that you can engage. And we would like to see at least one activity being proposed in your application, but with the understanding that engagement is not an easy thing. We will be guiding you on how to develop that part of your action plan in the first stage of the pilot program. Does FOODITY or your tech partner hold any IP on the resulting project in the short term and long term? I'm not sure if Hans, you can help me answer this one.
Well, in my view, let's say everything you develop within your application, that is your knowledge, that should be your IP. If you talk about components which we developed within the project from the project partners on let's say the FOODITY side, yeah, that's their knowledge. And as such, when you want to combine the things in the market, you have to make agreements between the parties who want to go to the market with such a solution. And as such, let's say IP is also managed.
Thank you. Without experience with proxy, IU, and the other components, how is it possible to participate? Question from Louisa. So
you want to
yeah, I think Hans, I will hand that over to you, but also I then will maybe ask Lazarus to explain about the components.
Let's say from proxy use side, what we prepare is let's say code which you can implement, so software code which you can implement in your software code in order to connect to the, let's say, the data use services of getting consent and getting the permission to share data between parties. So from that point of view, you need to have the basic knowledge of how to develop software. But from let's say, you don't need to know the details of proxy U, only how it works, let's say, in the general terms. And I think that is how we try to do that. Furthermore, we have technical assistance during the project. So if you hit some wall, some technical wall, or some things which not understand, then we have people who can help you. And then maybe Lazarus can add on the components.
Hello from me. First of all, Nika, if it would be possible to add me into the panel so that I can see the questions beforehand. And also, if it could be possible to repeat this question because I didn't get it when you asked.
So without experience with the components, how is it possible to participate?
Well, there will be the help that we will provide from our side by answering questions, I mean, regarding the components. Okay.
No, I think that was the answer.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm repeating because I don't know what you have heard. So what I said is that we will be there from our side. We are the ones that created the components in the first time. And so we will be there to help by answering to any questions. But besides, you don't need to have specific experience with the specific components to work with them. You can only have general programming knowledge, and then with our help, you can work with the components.
Thank you. Are there other sister projects with upcoming calls? So the only other sister project for this specific call is DRG for Food. And so you've heard from Maja. And Maja, maybe you can remind our attendees again where they can find information about DRG for Food.
Yes, all the information can be found on drgforfood.eu/open-calls. I will now once again share the links with everyone. So the main document is on the website. The application form is on F6S, and please take a second to register for our upcoming webinar, where we will dig deeper into all the details of the open call.
Thank you. Another question about the data lake. These are great questions, so thank you. Are you expecting a certain volume of data to be fed inside the data lake? In another way, when working with social innovator, oh, okay. I will pause there. So Hans, if you could answer that question about the data lake.
Can you repeat it, because I was answering something one more time, sorry.
Are you expecting a certain volume of data to be fed inside the data lake?
No, we didn't define that. I think that is something which is per project, is project dependent. So we didn't define it at this stage.
Okay, thank you. And when it comes to social innovation, is there a minimum number of people engaged in the program? No. In terms of how many users or citizens you're expected to engage and how you incorporate social innovation into your solution, there is no minimum number. So this is something we just want to see that you've thought this through. So we're expecting to see from you how many users you plan to engage, and then if needed to, again, refine these numbers at the start of the pilot, we will do that. Do you consider a hospital, dialysis center, or other organization in the health sector as an NGO or social innovator? So if the dialysis center, the hospital is, I suppose, conducting research or training or is registered as a public institution, that's acceptable. Social innovators, once again, it's about, are you doing social innovation? It's not about how you're registered. You can be a company and a social innovator. You can be an NGO and a social innovator. So please do look at our definition in the guidelines to understand whether you fit. Do you give grants to food processing company? If you are an SME, as defined according to the European Commission definition, and you are working in the food and nutrition sectors, you are eligible. And of course, you have to be in the EU or one of the Horizon Europe associated countries. Okay, 2 questions from Vladislav. What about subcontracting? To what extent is that allowed, if at all? I I'm not sure about this one, but I will, if you give me your contact or email us at opencalls@foodity.eu, and I will answer that via email. For VAT, is it necessary for a company to be VAT registered? For instance, in Bulgaria, every company has this unique number. So we actually had this question come up very recently. I understand that there are different regulations inside of different countries. So it's important that you kind of do your internal check when you're applying, that you can verify that you are an officially registered company, because we will be asking for the proof documentation should you be selected to the program. And we will be verifying that you are a real company. So if you have the documentation to prove that, then that's acceptable. There are all kinds of data generated in this project. Does all of it need to be uploaded to the data lake? I can answer briefly, and then maybe Hans, you might want to expand. All of the data, because we are, of course, focused on citizens' data rights and ensuring that data is ethically and properly managed. Everything needs to be stored in the data lake, except for the data where persons can be identified, as in individuals can be identified. So I don't know if Hans, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think your answer was quite sufficient.
Okay, thank you. And is this applicable for the duration of the program or indefinite after the end of the project? So yes, what happens to the data in the data lake post-project? Hans?
As I said, what we try to do is there are European initiatives where we can connect our data lake to, and that will be managed there. Whether we can keep the data lake alive after the project is a little bit dependent on how we define within the project our, let's say, and how we make a business model, how the cost of the data lake can be verified after the project ending. That is still, let's say, which we still have written in the stars, so I cannot give an answer yet.
Okay, thank you. Maja, you have someone who wants to connect with you, so maybe you can provide your LinkedIn address. And
Of course.
and to Pablo, so if the data I collect is collected by the user, but is related to plant growth, does it also apply to GDPR? I'm not sure. Hans, do you know how to answer that one?
Yeah, if the plant growth and let's say if it is a student or if it is a person who is analyzing plant growth and puts that data in let's say in the processing, yeah, that is not directly GDPR compliant. If the eating of the plant and the effects on a person is analyzed, that is GDPR compliant.
Okay, thank you.
But maybe one thing is if the plant growth and the knowledge about the plant growth is sensitive or confidential data of a company or an organization, then you have to treat this data also in a certain way, and that can be, and also data you can be used for that.
Okay. Pablo has added, people grow the plant inside the simulator under different weather conditions to create an open source database to train predictive models that can help smallholder farmers take more informed decisions to be more resilient to climate change. So I don't know if that makes you want to add anything, Hans?
No, when they want to create explicit open source data, then this fits perfectly in the data lake.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, a question from Mark. How is TRL deducted? Is it through the proposal submitted or do you expect previews? What we're expecting, first of all, it's important that you obviously as the applicant know exactly what TRL you are at, and then our experts will be assessing based on the description of your proposal that the stated TRL actually matches. So I hope that that answers your question. In the case of 3 partners, is it possible to cooperate as a leading SME? So I've already answered this. Can someone in Nigeria apply? I'm not sure off the top of my head if Nigeria is listed in under one of the support countries or the Horizon Europe associated countries. So Andrea has provided a PDF document from the EC on this. So please take a look at that and see if you're on the list. Is a smart refrigerated locker an eligible cost for the consortium? In the guidelines, there's all the details you have about what is allowed in the budget. So please take a look at that. If something is unclear, then send us an email. Okay, my question about anonymized evidence to show impact of the project ahead of phase 2. Do you expect evidence or early signs of traction in phase 1? I'm honestly not sure. I don't know if Hans, you can help with this. If not, then I would say Ariadna, and apologies again if I'm mispronouncing your name. Please do send us an email and I will answer via email. Hans, did you have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I said I saw that I was muted, but I don't understand the question completely. I'll have to take it in later.
Sure.
Maybe they can rephrase the question.
Let's leave it for email. I'm going to just put in the apologies on this, and but we will sort that one out. Okay. Is data encryption allowed on DataU, Hans?
Yeah, maybe it's good to. In fact, DataU is not organizing, let's say, the data itself. The data is shared between data processor and data processor. The only thing what we are organized in DataU is the consent to share data. And so once the consent is given, then you can share the data of course, in a data encrypted way, the way you like it, between one processor and the other processor.
Okay, thank you. So, Ebru, one partner from Turkey. In the case of 2 partner scenario, is it necessary to include? Okay, so I'm going to repeat this again. Social innovation actor. This is not defined according to what entity you are, but your capacity to practice and implement social innovation. You can be a social innovation actor and a company. You can be the technical leading SME that is, for example, designing the app, but also be an expert in social innovation. What we are looking for in the consortium is your capacity to bring in the technical, the social innovation, and the citizen engagement. So can you be an SME and an RTO? And then an additional social innovation partner? Absolutely. So I hope that is clear. Are you taking equity? No. I'm just, that was quite an abrupt answer, but we have quite a number of questions to go, so I'm going to try to get through them a bit more quickly. Can the DataU be relied on following the end of the project, or is there the risk that it could shut down following the end of EU funding? Hans?
Well, it's not our ambition to stop DataU after the project ends. Our ambition is to have this project, this service alive, independent from projects. So, and that's something we're working on. And that's also what I think and what I believe is that we have that fully operational, let's say, at the end of this project.
Thank you. What is the data model of the data lake? So this was given in the presentation. So please do look back at our webinar. We will be providing a recording, and you can see that in detail. Do we need to estimate a SW agent to translate our data models to be data lake compliant? Hans, can you answer that second part?
I don't know whether they need to have a software agent, but I expect when they are, let's say, software experts, they can do it themselves. But that's what I think. But what is important is that the data which is sent to the data lake is really, let's say, anonymized, and as such, that process of anonymizing have to be organized by each project itself.
Okay, thank you. Is there a distribution template for funding when it comes to different members of the consortium? There is no rule around what percentage each entity within your consortium should get. You can decide to do an even split. Perhaps the lead partner gets more of the budget. That's entirely up to you. You are expected to, of course, explain your budget and how you are planning to split the funding. And it needs to be justifiable and of course, make sense. Can we have in the proposal associated partners with no budgets? I don't believe so. I would say in this case, they're considered stakeholders. Are you sharing these slides? Yes. There will be a recording available. Can we have a chance to see potential SMEs to be a partner? Okay. What we can do only is if you fill out an application in the for the matchmaking pipeline in F6S, we look internally to see if there are any other applicants that match what you're looking for. So no, unfortunately, we cannot provide a public list of who has already filled out the application. Is a federated virtual data lake approach feasible? Data is in our servers, but we make it available to the data lake through a directory. Hans?
I'm not sure. We have to look into details on that. When we have to really have a discussion on it. I cannot say it like in general.
Okay, thank you. Private companies, that is not SMEs. So we are only allowing startups and SMEs according to the European Commission definition. So if you are a corporation, for example, then unfortunately you're not eligible. Will getting a Horizon Europe guarantee from UKRI make a UK company eligible for this call? Unfortunately, if you are a UK registered company, so the UK has signed an agreement to become a Horizon Europe associated country commencing from next year. We will not be accepting UK registered companies for this open call, but please do follow us because you might be eligible for the next call, which will be launching next year. And apologies for that. Okay, we have someone who wants a connection. Please send me an email, and I will see if I can put you in touch. Okay, is there a minimum team size of the lead partner? No, we don't need a minimum size. It's the question is about the entities. So you can have one lead company and there's 2 people in your team or 10 people. It's really about the capacity to do what the expectations are in this call. So that the number of people in your team does not matter. And I think now we have answered all the questions. We are right at 3:30. Unless anyone else has anything to ask, I'm just going to wait a couple more seconds before closing. Okay, so I want to thank again everyone who's participated in this webinar. We are delighted with the turnout. Happy for all of the excellent questions. Thank you to Hans, because most of those were directed at you and JIBE. I want to thank again my other colleagues, Andrea, Cosmin, Lazarus, and Maja from DRG for Food. Please do start your applications today and follow us on our social media. Stay tuned for updates and take care. Thank you so much.